Being recorded, and I guess welcome to all our future viewers who look at this webinar. All right, let's get started. Let us get started. All righty, let's just give a couple more minutes here, Leon, before we get going. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Alex. Hello, Leon.
Jonathan, are you part of the webinar today?
I was just on standby, making sure if Leon had any questions.
Okay.
Couldn't answer.
No worries. Might just hide your video there, Jonathan. Thank you. Great. Fantastic. Well, in that case, we might get going on the webinar today. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning to talk about upskilling and diversifying your careers with engineering at the Australian Maritime College. My name is Alex. I work for Interstate Recruitment, so I primarily work out of Sydney, and I'm joined today by our course coordinator, Leon, who's going to be talking a little bit about engineering, what that career actually looks like with a degree like this as well. I just really want to emphasize for everyone who is in the webinar today that just by way of admin, we're really encouraging you to ask a lot of questions. So there's a little Q&A bubble for those who have just joined us. There's a little Q&A bubble down the bottom of the screen there, as well as a little chat bubble. Now, I'd encourage you to use the Q&A bubble. Just hit those little speech bubbles and type your question in. I'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation, and we'll either answer them or we'll come to them at the end of the presentation where we can do all of the Q&As. Alternatively, you can put it in the chat bubble. It's a little bit harder for me to monitor them all, but I will be watching it. So as long as you put your text in there, we'll be able to look after you. So Leon's going to talk a little bit about the course, a little bit more in the career space than I will, but I'll come back at the end to talk a little bit more meat and potatoes, some of the admin side of things like applications, key dates, a couple things like that. But that's enough of me talking. Leon, I will throw it over to you to get started. Welcome to the webinar this morning.
Alex, thank you for that. And also for those who are here, thank you for joining us. What this presentation will focus on essentially is our college's postgraduate courses. Essentially, if you have an existing bachelor's degree and you're wanting to upskill or diversify your skill sets, this course is probably be the most pertinent to you. So starting off with the cover slide here, essentially we actually have one of our alumni in the background. So he's Nick Clark. He is a senior architect at ASC Shipbuilding. He actually started off with a bachelor's degree with us in 2016. And then he continued on with a Master of Philosophy with AMC. And then after that, he went joining ASC and has been there since. So you can see the giant ship behind him. That would be the air warfare destroyer, right? And I think that should be HMAS Hobart. So it's quite a good success story there. And I'm pretty sure his profile is on the website if you guys jump onto our webpage at UTAS. So before I start on the courses, probably the best thing to introduce is the Australian Maritime College. What we are essentially is a specialist maritime teaching and research institute. We're probably the leading, if not the most involved in delivering Australia's most advanced maritime learning experience. And we have also very close connections with the global maritime industry. So essentially the courses that we're offering, it's very relevant to the industry. Therefore, you would basically get the most relevant information once you graduate. And also you may also have the connections while you're as a student here, something that's probably one of our greatest strengths. So basically you start developing this network as a student if you do not already have them. And some of you guys might be already in the industry, so this would be probably extending what you currently have. So essentially, starting with this, you get a great experience and access to real industry opportunities. So the other thing I would like to mention is at the background, that's our Bluefin. It's a training vessel. So if you do join us, all students have the option of basically having a unit and get some training, or having a course, oh, sorry, a unit on the ship itself. If you guys missed the introduction, I'm Leon. I'm essentially the coursework coordinator at the postgrad level. So my job is essentially to facilitate anything regarding the course. So basically, my job is to help students, essentially, potentially you guys. All right. Another thing that I might want to again put a plug here is basically at the background. Probably it's not obvious that's an autonomous underwater vehicle. It's one of the largest in the industry. All right, and what we tend to do is we use it specifically, or what it was main design purpose is under ice missions. And I think it's probably the first AUV of its size to successfully do such under ice missions in the Antarctic. So it's quite a success story. If you guys like to find out more about it, put a question at the end and I can easily talk you through it, or at least introduce you to the vehicle. So in terms of maritime engineering, which is the focus of what we're presenting today, essentially the course is made up of a few or a wide range of subjects, and they're targeted towards development and procurement of maritime engineering systems. Given the wide range of units that we do have, or subjects that we have, we've actually streamed them into three key focuses. The first one being maritime design. That's probably our key one because it's the most comprehensive stream. It basically includes most, if not all, of our units within the schedule. And then it's followed by naval engineering, which is technical focus. And then last but not least is maritime technology management. So if I would again summarize these three streams, essentially you have the technical component naval engineering, you have a bit more management in maritime technology management. And if you were to combine them both, that will form the maritime design stream. And where this, how the courses were designed, essentially, we are aiming them at engineering professionals who are already in the workforce, but with limited exposure to the maritime engineering sector. So let's say if you graduated with a traditional mechanical engineering degree or civil engineering degree, and you just like to diversify your skill sets towards a more maritime flavor, this is the degree for you. This is the course for you. It gives you a very quick exposure to what is happening in the maritime engineering sector, and I think it probably gives you the best value because you study for 2 years. You would pretty much be up to date, if not familiar with the terminologies and the knowledge that our bachelor degrees would have. So it's good return on time invested, I would say. The other thing is, given that it's also designed for professional engineers, you might use this for continuing professional development. So essentially, if you're an accredited engineer, you need to spend some time to upskill. And this is probably a very good option to consider. So you can do all these three streams part-time, and then you can tick the box for your for your professional development, sorry. Last but not least, I'd like to just mention something that's odd in the background. That's a collision facility. So essentially, it's something that's been recently developed. I'm sure you might see in the news. What it does essentially, you have materials or structures connected to the top side of the rig. All right, and it's weighted, and essentially it would drop and collide with the plate at the bottom. So, and the next thing to note is this chamber has water in it. So essentially we can do underwater collision, which is quite a, it's quite new. It's fairly limited in the industry, this capability, and we're probably one of the first to develop it within Australia. So things that might be relevant would be submarine collisions, or anything below the free surface could even be extended to surface ships. And here's a high-speed camera that allows you to actually focus on how that collision develops or evolves over the time period. So drilling down a bit further into the specialization we offer, I did give an introduction, but this gives you a very nice, basically a good brief of what those three streams does. Technology management, it combines maritime engineering with management, and this will gravitate to those people who are looking to extend their careers into something more management focused. So let's say if you're an engineer, probably a senior engineer, and you just need to know how to deal with additional workflows such as logistics, those additional components are integrated into the stream. Another key aspect would be probably workflow in the shipyard, manufacturing, those kind of workflows that are not traditionally taught in a specialized bachelor degree. This is where you would get exposure to those concepts. The next stream that we have is naval engineering. This is more towards those guys who have limited exposure to maritime engineering. So essentially in the naval engineering stream, we will equip you with an introduction to principles of naval architecture, and then the course will slowly build up your knowledge up to a design level. So essentially, you'll be able to extend upon your bachelor's understanding to maritime systems, such as ships, the systems that are on board, and it could even extend to offshore platforms. And last but not least is the maritime design. Essentially, this combines the best of the two. So it's a very balanced degree or stream. It has very good focus on management units alongside the technical components, which forms the naval engineering side. All right. Also, special mention, the maritime design also has a focus on dissertation. So if you guys are familiar with the bachelor structure, there is also a thesis or dissertation component in the maritime design. So that also gives you a nice pathway if, let's say, you're keen to even pursue PhD, for example. That basically opens up your option. This will give you a very good learning curve to understand what research is like in the maritime engineering sector. And then if you like research, you can basically take the next step and do a PhD with us. So how does the job prospect look like? It's actually pretty good. So we are expecting more than 15,000 jobs in Australia as part of the naval shipbuilding program. So if you were to go online and catch the news, the shipbuilding program essentially involves building naval ships for defense, and a certain aspect that extends to also the submarine program, which is quite popular at the moment. And we have a very good track record with where our graduates end up to. They secure employment in very advanced technical and management role in the maritime engineering sector. So for example, here we have Tim McDonald here. He's one of the design engineers for Triton. So Triton is basically the company that built the deep submergence vehicle limiting factor. Some of you guys might know it. Limiting factor is essentially the vehicle who broke the record for the Challenger Deep. So it's basically the deepest diving vehicle. Sorry, I would say manned vehicle. So basically the scientist that was in it, I think was Victor, is quite famous. And basically it currently holds the record as of 2019 as the deepest diving submerged vehicle.
Sorry, Leon, do you
Yep.
mind if I just ask a question? Because one of the things that we get asked about a lot, particularly in the postgraduate space, is how smooth is my transition going to be? And I imagine many of our audience are coming from a different engineering background, like you said, into maritime. Can you perhaps talk a little bit more just about how our partners with the AMC can kind of help our students transition into a new career in maritime engineering?
Oh, that's a good question because we actually do that quite. It's pretty much a business as usual process. So we tend not to think of it too much, but to again summarize it, essentially, I'll give you two distinct examples. One example is essentially a person which forms most of our domestic students. They are already more or less in the maritime sector. So they already have a connection within and they would like to upskill themselves because they see that taking on additional learning gives them a better career prospect. So that's
fantastic.
They already have a good footing within the maritime industry. The other sector, the other group, which you say that may not have that maritime exposure, I would say that that's a good thing if you choose to go into the maritime industry and you do not have a segue or a career path towards that sector. I would say that AMC does give you a very good, leg up compared to other people's. What I mean by that is all our courses, it's developed under the advice of something we call the Industry Advisory Committee. So this committee is basically made up of the leading, if not the top companies within the industry. So knowing that if you were to graduate with an AMC degree and you were to go to a potential employer, they would know AMC.
Yeah,
you would
fantastic.
not need you will have the leg up by saying that you do not need to explain to them what your degree is about because they will be feeding directly into the program. Along the way, there will be lecturers that you will meet. Some of them would have very good connections with the industry. Some of them would be from the industry itself. So that's another level of access to the industry that you can develop. And last but not least, we have the dissertation program. So essentially you do a thesis, which is research-based, and then some of the topics may be, if not industry sponsored. So there are some of our graduates that essentially by doing research that is industry sponsored, they already have a job waiting for them upon graduation. That is if you do not have access to the maritime industry. So you can see it covers both ends.
Really good to know. Thanks, Leon. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's a great question. Thanks, Alex. So moving on. So we're talking about our research and the industry itself. I think the most pertinent currently, or the hot projects at the moment, is basically the Blue Cooperative Research Center and the Defense Maritime Innovation Defense Precinct. So essentially what this is, basically, the first one is an ARC program. CRC program. So essentially, I think it's a multi-million research initiative. And then the hub of it is actually centered in Tasmania itself. And what it involves essentially is we're trying to bring together research expertise and also industrial expertise in the field of seafood, marine renewable energy, and offshore marine engineering sectors to develop or to deliver innovative solutions that will transform the way we use our oceans for the future. Right, that's probably one of the most important aspects. So basically, we have secured both research and industry funding, and this is going to create something what we call the blue economy, bringing the best expertise in the industry to see and to develop how we use our oceans. So you can see that if you were to join, I wouldn't say AMC in particular, but if you were to join the maritime sector at this point, you can see potentially moving forward, the job prospects are great, because this Blue Cooperative Research Center would probably create new jobs. And you can choose seafood, marine renewables, or the traditional marine engineering sectors. All right, so it's a great period to be in the maritime engineering sector or to broaden into it. The other one is I'd like to get mention is the Defense and Maritime Innovation Design Precinct. So what's what this is about essentially is our federal government and the University of Tasmania has gone into a mutual agreement to build a defense precinct, a defense and maritime innovation precinct at the Maritime College. So what this is essentially 30 million to start off as funding, and it's going to be the best way I can sell it to you is basically it's going to be a thinking and working hub. Basically, it's hoped that this precinct will attract participants from both the industry and leading academics. And this particular precinct is more targeted towards defense and maritime innovation. So if you're in the design and defense sector, let's say for an AUV that's shown here, you want to get further develop it for exploration for Navy purposes, or in the case, if you were to again want to know about what's the latest technology in probably ship technology, I would expect a lot of those discussions to happen, if not bleed into this precinct. So you can see that the prospects are great. You have the traditional oil and gas industry, you have the shipbuilding industry, but moving forward, these are the emerging sectors that are coming up. So hopefully that entices you to see where the direction maritime industry is heading towards. Last but not least, sorry, just to mention, that's when I was in slide 3, I showed you a point of view of the submarine that I say is probably the largest in Australia. You can see here, it's basically the full view of the AUV itself. Sorry, not the submarine, the AUV. Yep. And we tend to deploy this for underwater missions in the Antarctic.
Just on that, Leong, I know that there's a little bit of collaboration between the AMC and what they're doing with the UAVs and some other parts of our university, like the Institute of Marine and Antarctic Science. Are you involved with any of those collaborations at all?
I used to. So I used to a long time ago, but it's a very active group, very collegiate group. Essentially, you have IMAS down south that's focused on an Antarctic research. And the nice thing about research, they always need an engineering team to support them. And that's where AMC comes in. So they use this vehicle to do a research mission, and AMC basically gives that engineering support to make that happen.
Fantastic. That's really good to know.
And that's pretty much the end of our chopper view of the postgraduate courses. So if you have any questions, there are many ways to approach us. You can basically go online, send us an email, or you can even call us directly. And if you can't get all of us, we promise to respond to you within the day. I'm pretty sure.
What we'll do is, if you do have any questions for Leong or myself, please just type them down the bottom there, either in the chat or the Q&A, and we can figure out who can answer them between us. What I will do just before we all go is just talk very briefly about the application process, because this is often the next step. And a lot of people are kind of coming to the end of the work year, Christmas parties are on the horizon, and figuring out what we're going to be doing for 2021. So it's important just to point out where we can make that application from. What I'm going to do, Leong, is just very quickly share my screen with everyone here, just so everyone can see exactly where you apply from. Let me share it there, so you guys can see my screen here. This is just our homepage where you would make that application from, and you just follow the links here. Super simple. Red application button. Hit that one, and then you're just going to be applying as an undergraduate applicant, unless you're doing one of the a PhD or one of the non-coursework. We'll call it a like a thesis. If you're doing a research degree, there we go. I finally got it. If you're doing a research degree, you make an application elsewhere. But otherwise, just follow the prompts to do to start the application. Now, my advice would be to start your application as soon as possible. We accept applications all the way through until start of semester, which I believe is early February for the AMC, Leong.
Sorry, could you ask the last bit question again?
So the term will start at the beginning of February, usually for the AMC, just confirming that. We do actually accept applications pretty close to the start of semester. That's obviously not really where you want to be, kind of accepting offers just a few weeks out from the start of semester. So my advice is to jump onto the website. All the applications are free, and do that application at your earliest convenience. And like Leong said, those contact details that he had up are a really good place to start. Those guys are really good at helping applications out. And the last thing I just wanted to ask you, Leong, before we all head off, is how flexible the masters is in terms of how the teaching's delivered. Is it mostly online? Obviously, a lot of students might be coming interstate. Not sure if the borders are going to be open. Then, can you talk a little bit about how flexible the course is for prospective students?
Well, that's a great question. I might do a bit of I might share a point. I think this is valuable for those guys who are joining us online, so that we have some kind of reference for the discussion. So I'm just going to share my slides again, and then so you can see it. This is basically. Oh, Alex, can you see the table of courses?
We sure can, Leong.
Yeah. So this is basically what I've collated together from the website. You get this information online, but essentially what we have is four levels. And the nice thing about all these levels is they are pretty much available as both on campus and by distance, and also part-time. So I'm going to start with the reason why I'm going to again spend a bit more time on this, because I think this is more relevant for professional engineers in the workforce. So the length of all these courses, we have something what we call a minimum length. Essentially, for let's say at the graduate certificate level, you do a minimum of 6 months. And what that means is essentially the 6 months is required to complete 4 units full time. Having said that, you can take all these courses part-time. So we have a lot of engineers from the industry who are enrolled in our courses. They're pretty much taking probably a minimum of 1 unit per semester. And in the case if their work load builds up, they can also defer and shift to the next semester, if not the following year. In all these courses, we have a dual semester enrollment. So essentially you can enroll in semester 1, if not semester 2. The units do have a limitation. Some of them run only 1 semester per year. But as I said before, you can do this part-time. So you have the option of shifting the units around. Except for the dissertation units, all the other units are developed to be standalone professional units. So essentially, you can pretty much mix and match your learning schedule as it suits your work schedule. So that's a great option, I think. Alex, you asked about flexibility.
Yeah.
Last but not least, but there is one that might differ a bit, which is essentially our master's professional program, or more commonly known as the Maritime Design. This is a minimum of 2-year program and is accredited by Engineers Australia. There are some units within this program. You can see here it's enrollment is only by on campus, but we're aiming to shift that to distance at some point in future. There are 2 units that requires on-campus delivery, but because of border restrictions and so on, they have revolved in a short time frame to be able to do most of its components by distance. So I'll say that I think I'll foresee maybe within the next 2 years, you can see that this delivery might change to or extend to distance learning. But if you guys are looking for professional developments, these 3 first streams will serve you very well. And I also might mention that these are cascading qualifications. So you may choose to graduate with a graduate certificate, come back, go for that graduate diploma. And if you really think this is something you enjoy doing, go for the Master Advanced, or some of you guys might just skip this first 3 and go straight to the Master's Professional part-time or full-time.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's really good to know. Thanks, Leong.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. We'll just wait 30 more seconds, see if any more questions pop up for either myself or you. But just want to thank you, Leong, for making the time today. I know you've got a very busy schedule to come and have a chat. Again, for our attendees, this is just the first point. If you guys do need any assistance with your application, please reach out on those contact details and just let us know. Otherwise, I know that the AMC staff are always really happy to talk with prospective students who are kind of going through that journey. I'm always impressed by how available you guys make yourselves. So do just reach out to us. Let us know if there's anything to do. I don't think that we have any more questions coming through, so I will call it there. Thank you very much for attending. I'll just hit the stop recording button here. Yeah, thank you very much for attending today, and all the best with your future studies.